Hello everyone, and welcome to Techstrong TV. Today is Tuesday, November 29th, and I hope you all are having a wonderful day so far. I'm your host, William Willis, and in today's show, we're going to bring you some fantastic interviews with incredible guests from around the world, so stay tuned. As always, I'm going to start off with our Techstrong News Recap, filling you in on the biggest tech headlines that are making waves. Then, we will head over to Allen, where he sits down with Sebastian Sheila, CEO and co-founder at Kubermatic, to talk about some of the pitfalls when it comes to Kubernetes clusters management. Alan will then talk to Anna Doherty, Senior Product Marketing Manager at Armory, about how Armory surveyed 400 engineering and operations professionals to better understand their current approach to development, efforts to improve speed to market, and common pain points. Then Alan will meet with Jeffrey Gore, Vice President of Product Marketing at ServiceNow, to discuss the latest capabilities being built on the ServiceNow platform, including automated service suggestions, service request playbook, and workplace scenario planning. Next up, we're airing episode 2 of our series, Engineering the Change. This series will follow the 3 winners of the Engineering the Change Scholarship Program as they tackle a 10-week intensive coding bootcamp and prepare themselves for careers in software engineering. Then, Mitch speaks with Jeremy Freeman, co-founder and CTO of AllStacks, to discuss the solving bottlenecks, making sure work isn't necessarily in a wait state, and determining what metrics are more than just how many builds are performed. We will then go to KubeCon Cloud Native Con North America, where Alan met with Patrick Bergstrom, CTO of StormForge, and Yasmin Rajabi, Vice President of Product Management at StormForge, to discuss Day 2 Kubernetes operations. We then go to BMC Exchange VIP, where Mike spoke with Otto Contreras, Deputy CIO for the City of Miami, about how IT teams are becoming more agile than ever. We will then wrap up this broadcast with 2 episodes of View with Vizard. In the first episode, Mike interviews CyberGRX CISO Dave Stapleton, as David discusses the level of stress cybersecurity teams are under and what should be done to alleviate it as cyber attacks increase in volume and sophistication. Then Mike interviews Shuni Prucci, a security consultant with Bishop Fox, as Shuni explains why organizations need to embrace cybersecurity by design. And that's what we have coming up for you on this episode of Techstrong TV. So without further ado, let's get the show started. Enjoy.
Do you know what you want?
Can we afford this place?
I'm thinking a 1,000-piece Kubernetes, cloud workload protection, and XDR combo.
Yeah, I actually don't see any prices.
Hello, how can I schedule a demo for you today?
So we're on a budget.
Okay.
How much is your 1,000-piece Kubernetes?
What solutions are you currently evaluating?
You don't have to order off that thing.
We don't?
How did you get in here?
Check this out.
Uptick secret dollar menu.
Order today and you can secure any combo of cloud and endpoint assets through the end of next year. All for $1.
What if I want to secure 100 Mac laptops and 900 Linux servers?
Yeah, $1.
What if I want 500 laptops and 500 Kubernetes nodes? Just $1?
Yep, mix and match to create the combo that works for you.
What about customer support?
Yep, everything for just $1.
We're gonna order off the Uptick secret dollar menu.
And seriously, how did you get in here?
Seriously.
Try the Uptick's combo of CNAP and XDR, delivered in a single UI and data model. Just $1 to secure your cloud, containers, and laptops through the end of next year. Offer ends December 31st.
Hi again, everyone. Here are the headlines for November 29th. First up, the US has announced that it is banning the sale of communications equipment made by Chinese companies, citing an unacceptable risk to national security. The Federal Communications Commission voted unanimously to adopt the rules banning the importation of tech from Huawei and ZTE, as well as video surveillance systems made in China. Hikvision, a maker of video surveillance equipment, has responded by saying that their products present no security threat. This is just the latest in the escalation of US restrictions on Chinese technology in the past couple of years, with this being one of the first times that the FCC has voted to prohibit equipment based on national security concerns. Next up, the state of New York has signed a law that will place limits on the spread of cryptocurrency mining. While there have been many new laws and measures set in place after the fallout of the FTX collapse, this one focuses exclusively on the environmental impacts. The law will set a 2-year moratorium on new and renewed air permits for fossil fuel power plants used for proof-of-work cryptocurrency mining, as well as require the Department of Environmental Conservation to assess how crypto mining impacts the state's ability to reach climate goals. With this new law being signed into action, New York is the first in the nation to take steps towards limiting crypto mining. In other news, Meta has been hit with a $275 million fine for breaching European data protection laws. The Irish Data Protection Commission announced the fine yesterday, based on Meta breaking rules regarding data protection by design and default. The fine itself originates back to April of 2021, where there were reports of over 530 million Facebook users' personal data being exposed online. This is not the first time that the Data Protection Commission has penalized Meta, including a 2021 fine against WhatsApp for transparency breaches and a Facebook breach earlier this year. Next up, Amazon has announced that it will be shutting down its wholesale distribution business in India. Amazon announced that it will be shutting Amazon Distribution, an e-commerce website available to small neighborhood stores, pharmacies, and department stores in several cities in India. Amazon, however, has not announced when it will discontinue the service. This follows Amazon's shutdown of 2 of its other businesses in India, food delivery and an online learning platform, as it pushes to restructure its global business. Over the past decade, Amazon has deployed over $7 billion to build out its business in the country. However, it seems that it's planning to focus more on its core e-commerce offerings in the future. On Security Boulevard, we have an article looking at the community's reactions to news that tax prep sites are leaking personal data to Facebook. H&R Block, TaxAct, and Taxpayer were accused of selling personal data to Meta using an embedded JavaScript supplied by the company. This article looks at how the thought leaders and practitioners of the tech sector are reacting to this news. To learn more, go to securityboulevard.com. On DevOps.com, we have an article looking at how VMware made a Spring Boot 3.0 update for building Java applications that are microservices-based, bringing support for Java 17. VMware has said that this new update will allow building applications that are significantly faster than applications that currently rely on Java 8. To learn more, go to DevOps.com. On Digital CXO, we have an article looking at how to manage cloud spending during our current macroeconomic environment. As companies are tightening their budgets, enterprise leaders need to figure out how to optimize tech spending, and this article offers tips on how to do just that. To learn more, go to digitalcxo.com. And that's today's Techstrong News Recap.
ContainerJournal.com is the leading online destination for centralized computing-related content. ContainerJournal.com covers all aspects of software containers, from container management, data management for containers, container security, networking for containers, to the entire container ecosystem, Kubernetes, microservices, serverless, and more. ContainerJournal.com has the largest selection of container-related news, featuring breaking news, blog posts, podcasts, and more. Visit www.containerjournal.com to learn more.
This is Techstrong TV.
Hey everyone, welcome back to Techstrong TV. We got actually I have a new company and first-time guest here on Techstrong TV to introduce you to. I want to introduce you right now to Sebastian Schiller. Sebastian is the co-founder, I believe, CEO.
Yeah, that's right.
Correct, Sebastian? Yeah, okay. And the name of his company, I want to make sure I get it right here, is Kubermatic. And from the name, you could probably guess it has something to do with Kubernetes, but Sebastian, first of all, welcome to Techstrong TV. Thanks for being on. Why don't you, if you don't mind, share a little bit of your background with the audience?
Yeah, first of all, thanks for the invitation. Giving you a bit of background about me and about the company. I'm Sebastian, one of the 2 founders and CEO of Kubermatic. I have a technology background, originally studied computer science, worked then a lot of years in the enterprise industry, latest in the product management for SAP in the database space. And went quite early into the Docker and Kubernetes space. Like, I think I started 7.5 years, 8 years ago with Docker. I think first version of Docker I used was 0.5 or something, like really early on this cloud native train. And 6.5 years ago, we decided when Google announced Kubernetes, hey, that's an interesting tool, which is potentially not only for the Google Cloud, it could be interesting for other cloud providers, but also for on-prem environments. Let's do something with it. And so then we started a company and we saw the opportunity, how can we help customers to manage Kubernetes clusters anywhere, like from the cloud to their bigger data centers, and now more and more also, especially on edge computing. So having like a unified platform which helps you to manage Kubernetes cluster. But before we jump more into Kubernetes, potentially, let's finish a bit about me. So beside here, CEO for Kubernetes, I'm also in the governing board from the Linux Networking Foundation and the CNCF, really to help and drive the perspective of smaller companies in this organization, and providing that feedback also to the foundation, what smaller companies are doing and where they want, or what their opinion about where the whole ecosystem is going to.
Absolutely. Interesting stuff. Great stuff. I guess I should ask you this just because I'm curious. Will you be at KubeCon in Amsterdam in April?
Yes, of course. I was at KubeCon Detroit. What was it?
You were? Okay,
yeah.
we were there too.
Next time we will meet.
Well, that's what I'm saying. We're going to be in Amsterdam doing videos, so we'll do a part 2 of this in April in Amsterdam. But it's interesting. So let's talk about the company's offering, if you will, right? What are you guys, offering to customers, and who are the kinds of customers?
Yeah. So what we do, or potentially, like when we started, we saw the challenge how to manage Kubernetes clusters at scale. At that time, there was only GKE available, where you press a button and get a Kubernetes cluster, and we were asking ourselves, we want to have something similar, but on any cloud provider and also on-prem environments. So technically what we built was then a platform which helps you to manage tens, hundreds, or even thousands of Kubernetes cluster across all the different platforms. We started initially, especially with managed service providers, so who are running or providing Kubernetes as a service to their customers, because one of the strong capabilities we built in from the first day on was multi-tenancy capability, so that different customers or different users can't see the workload of the others. And so we started with them because they had from the first day on this requirement, I cannot share a Kubernetes cluster with multiple customers. And so they needed to manage a lot of Kubernetes clusters. And a lot of enterprises at that time were still at the stage, no, I'm running one or two big Kubernetes cluster, do multi-tenancy inside of the cluster with different namespaces. But we saw that the problem, like if you do this, the problem what you solve on the application level, you push down into the Kubernetes infrastructure level, because when do you want to upgrade your Kubernetes cluster? Because there's every time someone who don't have time to upgrade the application, or who has currently critical workload. And so you have then a lot of flexibility in the application, but still back in the infrastructure on upgrading twice a year, Christmas and Easter or something like this, your underlying infrastructure. And so over time, more and more enterprises, or we're working with more and more enterprises, because they're also getting more and more clusters. The management of these clusters gets more and more complicated, because across all these different environments, they see really that they want to centralize this, having a container as a service or cloud native as a service team. But then they also need to provide a platform, and like that's exactly where we fit into place. So if people start working at scale, they want to build their own as a service offering also inside of their organization, so that others can via an API consume the services they're providing, and our starting point is Kubernetes there, so that they easily can start with creating Kubernetes cluster, and others can operate this for them.
Sure. I mean, it's almost in those cases, it's really having a Kubernetes as a service serving an internal customer base, right? You're not selling it to the public or the customers out there. It's internal. Now, when you say it's Kubernetes as a service, it's not just the Kubernetes. It's the whole platform, right? The whole stack, if you will.
Yeah, it's not only like, okay, you're getting a Kubernetes cluster. It's a whole platform. Like, we take care about how to provision a Kubernetes cluster, but then also how to do heavily day 2 operation, how to upgrade Kubernetes cluster, how to automatically, for example, when you have when nodes go down, how to recreate them automatically. But then things on top, like, for example, how to ensure that you can roll out policies, for example, OPA policies on the clusters, especially like in the enterprise. This is coming up more and more, that you say, okay, for production clusters, I have a certain set of policies which needs to be applied that I can serve them as a production cluster. Or then we have capabilities of an application catalog, so that your platform team can provide a decent set of default applications, for example, an Nginx or some specific combinations of application which your developers can easily consume and say, okay, please install this additional components on top of the cluster. And one thing what we doing also more and more is then providing a holistic monitoring platform, so that you don't need to install on every cluster dedicated Prometheus and Grafana, so that you can centralize this, and your container or cloud native team can also provide them out of the box stack, so that connect all the clusters to a central monitoring and logging infrastructure based on Prometheus or Grafana and Loki, so that you can centralize all the logging and monitoring information.
Excellent. Would it be fair to say, like, what you're offering is almost a distro, a full-on distro, or not?
Yes, on the one side it's a distro, but it's even more. It's like really like then the whole platform, how to manage Kubernetes clusters at scale, so that it's really like also around the management environment. And I mean, we have 2 tools. One is like our Kubernetes platform, in short, like KKP, which is really like this, how to manage Kubernetes at scale. And when we started building this, we were thinking, okay, what's the best way to manage Kubernetes cluster? And we came up with the idea, let's use Kubernetes to manage Kubernetes, which is nowadays called Kubernetes operator. But when we started, there was nothing there. So we, like our whole organization, what we're doing is from the first day on building Kubernetes operators. But then we had a chicken egg problem, because we need Kubernetes to get KKP running. So we have another tool there, which is called Kube1, which is there to spin up individual clusters. And especially for customers or for developers who only need 1 or 2 or 3 clusters, it's a really easy starting point. You're getting more or less the same capability as the big KKP, but with only for an individual cluster, and which much less complexity, because it's only there for an individual cluster, and not like, okay, I need to have the whole big orchestration engine to manage hundreds or thousands of clusters at scale.
Got it. Excuse me. So I think we understand a lot about the company now. Let's, Sebastian, let's turn our attention to, Kubernetes at scale. Look, Kubernetes, no one ever raises their hand and says Kubernetes is easy to use or very easy to, maintain or whatever. Kubernetes at scale is a whole different animal, right? It's certainly not for the faint of heart. What are some of the biggest problems that you see from your customers when they try to do Kubernetes at scale? What are the challenges?
Yeah, I think exactly as you said, like Kubernetes itself to manage is already hard. But if you need to manage this at scale, I think the only way how you really can do this is with heavy automation. So if you haven't automated your whole stack, not only for provisioning a cluster, like really to do full lifecycle management of your clusters, like upgrading, scaling up, scaling down, deletion of clusters, you run into problems. And that's what we see in a lot of cases where people started building things on their own. It's working until a certain size, but then if you need to manage more clusters, you need more automation. And that's where we come into the game, like, because our platform was designed and built from the first day on, like, how can we manage Kubernetes cluster fully automated? Because we're leveraging heavily Kubernetes there. It's easy to operate a lot of Kubernetes cluster. Like we did with one of our customers, we measured how much time they spent to operate all of their Kubernetes clusters, and they spent less than 5 hours per month on really manual work to do it, because everything is automated. When something goes down, our tooling and the operators are kicking in and recreating all the stuff as it was desired before.
Excellent. 5 hours a month sounds fantastic. I mean, when you realize what you're dealing with there.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, typically we see there that even if you are already quite optimized, in a lot of cases. So if you get starting scaling more, you need more and more engineers. Hours for really a bunch of clusters is nothing. Your resources, and I mean, one of the challenges everyone from us has currently is like really finding this high-skilled people who knows how to operate and how to build a platform and how to manage a platform in the Kubernetes space. And so instead of only using them to build this platform, enable your team that they really can move application on top, because that's the other challenge what we're seeing. Even if customers have hundreds of developers, they typically have a handful of engineers who really deeply understand Kubernetes and take this rare resources to enable all of the rest of your developers so that they build applications which are running smoothly on Kubernetes.
Got it. You know what, Sebastian, it occurs to me, look, some of our audience is a very technical audience, and they know cloud native. But there might be some people out here who maybe really don't understand Kubernetes, or they're not sure. When we talk about a Kubernetes cluster, right, Kubernetes orchestrates containers. So almost by definition, when you're running an instance of Kubernetes, you're running multiple containers, right? A cluster, right? Why don't you could do it better than me, I'm sure. Why don't you explain what we mean by a Kubernetes cluster and the multiple clusters, and how that kind of, maps to a modern, not just an application, because it's multiple applications, but to an organization?
Yeah. So, I mean, when we're looking into the past, typically how we were running software, we were deploying it onto a dedicated individual server. Even if the software was able to scale, then we deployed it potentially to 2 or 3 or 4 servers. But in the majority of cases, we were even having hard-coded, like, okay, on which server it goes. And here, first of all, container comes in. Container is really like how to package the software, similar as what happens in the shipping industry. Make it generic. You have one standard container. It doesn't matter what's in there. You can run it or you can ship it everywhere, and every neighbor in the world can pick it up. So similar are containers. You can put in Java application. You could put in Go, PHP, Node.js application. And then if you have the container, how to distribute this across multiple servers. So Kubernetes is really there building out of your multiple servers a cluster, so that they, from developer perspective or from an operation perspective, you talk to one API, which is Kubernetes, and then Kubernetes takes care automatically where to put in the individual containers, and what happens, for example, if one server goes down, that the containers who are on that server are recreated on another server where still free capacity is available. And that's like in a nutshell what Kubernetes is doing. But then the challenge comes to, okay, what is if I need to have different teams or different application with different requirements for my underlying infrastructure, and they are like really this multi-cluster approach is coming into the picture. So, for example, for some applications, I need to have servers with high memory or high CPU, so I can put them into a cluster. For others, for example, machine learning workloads, I need GPUs. So I have a cluster where GPUs are available. And so then I get much more flexibility and also can better decide when it's time to upgrade what version of Kubernetes and the container runtime I'm running on this cluster and where to deploy what.
Excellent. Good. Sebastian, we're over time actually already. For people who want to get more information on Kubernetes, where can they go?
Of course, first of all, on our website, kubernetes.com, there they can find all the informations. Or if they want to understand more, feel free to look at LinkedIn, Sebastian Scheele. You find me there, ping me, and then I can help you and guide you to the right information or bring you in contact with one of our folks who can provide you more information.
Fantastic. Sebastian, thank you so much for joining us today. We have a date in April in Amsterdam. I expect to see you there. We'll continue the conversation.
Absolutely. I will count you on that.
All right. Kubernetes here on Techstrong TV. We're going to take a break now. We'll be right back with another guest.
This is Techstrong TV.
Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Techstrong TV. Our next guest is a first-time guest here on Techstrong. She works with Armory, the people who really brought Spinnaker to a lot of enterprises as a commercial offering, but more than that, it's Anna Dougherty. Anna is a senior product marketing manager with Armory. Hey, Anna, welcome to Techstrong TV.
Hi, Alan. Thanks for having me.
It's our pleasure to have you on here. So, Anna, well, let's hear a little bit about your story.
Oh, sure. Great. Well, thank you for the introduction. I'm a senior product marketing manager at Armory, as you said. And if your audience is familiar with product marketing managers, we're sort of that odd in between the product team, marketing, the customer, and bringing market insights into the product development. Realizing product development. So, I've been doing this for about 5 years now. I absolutely love it. But before that, I've been in technology marketing for 10 years. I started in video games. Now I'm in software as a service.
Hard tech, yep. You know, it's interesting. It's not today, but at some point we should put together a panel of product marketing people.
I agree.
Really talk about their job because
it's misunderstood, right? A lot of people. Well, first of all, a lot of people in tech hear marketing and they shut down.
Yeah, they turn
they're like, it's just marketing.
and yet I know many CMOs who started their careers as engineers and probably have more code committed than most of the developers watching us today. But on top of that, product marketing, as you said, is a whole different animal because you sit at the nexus of product, customers, and marketing. And really, you know, it's the place where information comes in and gets sort of analyzed for what we need to do with product and what customers are saying about using our product and how do we better tell people what the product's capabilities, use cases, and so forth are.
Spot on, 100%.
Yep. Absolutely. Well, I've been around a while. Anyway.
And Anna, of course, you work for Armory. I briefly said, you know, they brought Spinnaker to many enterprises, and that's probably what they're best known for. But another thing they're known for is every year they do a pretty good report that I've been following for a couple of years. And this year's report is out, I understand.
It is. And actually, it's 3 reports. Yeah, we tripled the production.
Okay.
Um,
3 for the price of 1.
3 for the price of 1, which is free. So we decided to really widen the scope of the types of people we were contacting about this report. It's usually IT leaders, DevOps leaders. We also wanted to take it to developers. And so we wanted to split up the report based on the insights we got from about 400 respondents. And so the 3 reports are continuous deployment in software development, enterprise scale deployment. So that's your IT leaders, DevOps leaders, CTOs, and then pain points and risks for developers in software deployment. So we thought by splitting up the audiences, we could get some really good insights across the gamut.
I agree with you. So as I said, I've been in this space a long time and doing this a long time. I always feel with reports, there's always at least 3 or 4 big bullet points that kind of convey, the overriding themes here. I'm sure this is no different. Why don't we jump into them?
Sure. The one thing that I would encourage everyone to take away from these reports, from IT leaders all the way down to developers, is that reliability is the number one thing everyone is concerned about. So more than 80% of respondents in every single category said they care about software deployment reliability. And that's interesting to me because when you think about it, you'd think speed of deployment might be the number one thing that a company would be concerned about, right? To, make sure their software gets there before the competitors do, to get it to the market faster. That's what a marketer might be concerned with. But your IT leaders are not that concerned with that if 82% of them are saying, we care that our software is deployed reliably, that we know our software is there for our customers, there for our end users. We don't have to, roll back. We don't have outages. And I think that's incredibly interesting that that's so consistently feedback we got from all of the respondents.
Absolutely. Well, I'll be honest, I'm not surprised. I think reliability, it's funny. I tell this to my children. I tell it to our employees here. You could be the greatest at what you do, whether it's coding or marketing or product marketing or name it. But if we can't count on you to be reliable, showing up, getting the job done, right? Then it's all for naught, right? So to me, reliability trumps them all. But anyway, go ahead. So that's a great start, reliability.
Absolutely. Yeah. And it comes down to trust, right? There's a contract of trust that you're building with your users. And it's just like you're saying in real life, you care about that person who's going to show up, you can trust them. Yep. And so I found that incredibly interesting. And then when you get into the nitty gritty of the folks who are doing that work every single day, what do they care about? They care about the ability to deploy frequently, right? So you want to be able to create your software, code it, get it out there, but not have to worry about the number one thing that they're concerned about with their everyday job, which is too many manual steps. So more than 50% of respondents in the developer category said, that's holding me back. Too many manual steps in the deployment process. It's a bottleneck. It makes my life a living heck. And it's keeping them from doing what they really want to do, which is not DevOps, it's coding. And so I think they care about reliability, but they also care about their own personal, experience with development, employment.
I agree. It's a good second point. Any difference between the different audiences on that one?
Oh, between what metric of success is for an IT leader versus a developer? Yes. So the metric of success for a developer is deployment frequency. And metric of success for IT leader is reliability and uptime.
Good. Yeah, it's funny because, you would think you'd want consensus on what is most important.
Yeah, I think it comes down to the everyday, right? And your job is affected very much by how much personal pain you have to experience in those manual steps, where an IT leader isn't experiencing that every day, but they do feel it when the software is down. They do feel it when customers can't access their application.
No, look, I actually did an interview on another report recently.
And, they were touting it like it was a big surprise about downtime being so expensive and so
millions of dollars
to leaders.
Yeah, but it's been like that for as long as I've been in technology. Downtime's bad, right? Downtime's bad. It's
absolutely.
It's not. You don't need a PhD in or an MBA to know that. So, I think sometimes people lose sight of that, and that, quite frankly, is one of the nice things about CI/CD and pipelines and using tools in DevOps is, look, if something happens, you want to be able to roll back really quickly.
Right.
And that's becoming increasingly complex with multi-cloud environments, different deployment targets, regional deployments. Everything starts to get bigger and more complex. And that's kind of where Armory is really focusing our attention. We really care about obscuring that complexity for people, making it very much from the developer side of the house, one-click automated steps, get rid of all the manual processes so you don't have to worry about that. And then from the leadership perspective, making sure that it's streamlined and that all of that complexity is taken care of. So if there is a problem, you can roll it back without any concerns about, not missing, without missing an environment or, anything like that. So yeah, that's our big thing, is making sure we can cover what everybody cares about at each step.
Excellent. All right, let's go to our third point.
Sure. So I think our third point here is when you really bring it all together and you think about, okay, we know developers care about their everyday, and we know IT leaders care about reliability. What does that mean in practice? And it means brand. So we really thought about it, and we came away with the understanding that if your your application is reliable, you're building trust. And if your developers care about your brand, they're creating good software, deploying it without a problem. And so you're increasing your scale of your brand and doing it in a way that your users can trust. And so we thought it's really important to highlight what scale means here. So scale in the past has been really thought about as technology or performance, right? Oh, you can scale. You can throw more resources at Kubernetes. That's scale. This report shows us that that's not just the case. It's technology plus people plus processes. And so when you have those three things together, you're creating strength and scale. So those people, those developers who are experiencing those pain points, when you can remove the pain points for them, that makes them scalable. Those processes, when you can remove the manual steps and add automation and testing directly into the pipeline and the workflow, that becomes scalable. And when you have technology that obscures the complications and the complexity and isn't homegrown or just scripts, tossed on some open source software, that becomes scalable. So all three of those things together are incredibly important, and that's contributing to the strength of your brand.
I agree.
Lesson I've learned as I'm a CEO here. Obviously, I've been at C-levels for 20 plus years. You're only as good as your weakest link.
Absolutely.
When it comes to that.
So when we look at people, process, and technology, you could have the greatest technology in the world.
If your people
processes or your people can't do it, exactly.
And so when we talk about scalability across all three, it's a lowest common denominator, right? That kind of grounds you. So, and even here at Techstrong, right? It's something we've learned to kind of live with. So,
yeah, and taking the time to assess it right?
Mm-hmm.
Your DevOps leaders are going to really, really look at technology performance, and we want them to do that. But we also want them to assess those other two categories, because you're right. If you can identify the processes that are weak links, not just in your team, but in teams across your organization, that's when you can start to see those patterns that are keeping you from scaling.
Absolutely. Agree. All right. Those are our three big things. What else interesting in the report do you want to bring up with the audience?
Well, I would say there's a ton of great information from all the way from the IT leaders all the way down to developers. Check these reports out. They're free. You can just go to armory.io and look at them. I absolutely encourage you to do so because you'll learn a ton.
Let me make sure we got that right. Go to armory.io, which is it's ARMORY.io.
Correct.
And right off the front page,
right off the front page, there's a little banner. Read more. You can read about our deployment reports
and download them as well.
Yep, you can download them. You can read them right on the page. Really easy to access. We didn't want to gate them. We wanted to make them available because we think this is really important information for everybody.
Absolutely.
Hey, Anna, thanks for coming in and joining us today and telling us about the reports. Come back anytime and keep us posted on Armory, okay?
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Alan. Appreciate it. Thanks for inviting me.
A pleasure.
Anna Dougherty with Armory here. Go check out those reports. They're at armory.io. Good stuff in there. We're going to take a break here on Techstrong, and we'll be right back.
This is Techstrong TV.
Hey everyone, welcome back here to Techstrong TV. I'm really happy to have one of our ServiceNow friends back with us. Actually, I think it's the first time Jeffrey's been on our show. But ServiceNow, of course, is no stranger to Techstrong TV. Let me introduce you to Jeffrey Gore. Hey Jeffrey, welcome to Techstrong TV.
Hey, thank you very much for having me.
Excellent. So Jeffrey, look, you're a first time, long time, as they say in radio, right? But seriously, give people a little bit about who you are and what you do at ServiceNow.
Yeah, very good. So my name is Jeffrey Gore. I head up what we call employee workflows, product and solution marketing. And I also head up our teams that are responsible for communicating really any of our releases, as we're going to be talking about today with our quarterly store launch. Longtime ServiceNow employee. I've actually been here for over 7 years at this point. Originally coming in to head up our HR service delivery product line, get that off the ground, get that built. Had various roles at ServiceNow over the past 7 years, and now excited to be talking to you today about the quarterly store release.
Absolutely. And if you don't mind, I just want to, though everyone's heard of ServiceNow, and probably there's a lot of ServiceNow customers out here watching this, I want to just kind of frame when we say a quarterly store release. The fact is ServiceNow does a major platform release.
Is it once a year or twice a year?
It's twice a year.
Twice a year.
And they're always named for cities, or they have been recently anyway. Yep. The most recent release was Tokyo.
And
that's correct.
We did an extensive coverage on that. I got to think that was October, late September, something like that.
Late September is correct.
Yep. And now this quarterly release kind of, it's a quarterly release, hence the name quarterly, but it builds on top of, in this case, Tokyo.
That's a correct way to view it. So our customers were asking for a more rapid innovation cycle. So yes, we have 2 family releases a year, but by moving technology and moving innovation to a store, we actually have the opportunity to deliver innovations faster for our customers. And so, while we want to actually speed up the rate of innovation, you have to do it in a structured way. So starting in the May release, we actually bundled all of these store updates into a single release. And this is actually our second quarterly release here on November 3rd. So this is the second time we've done this. All of the innovations we're going to talk about today are available on store.servicenow.com. And these are updates that yes, they're tied to the Tokyo release. You may even find that some of the innovations we are going to talk about have backwards compatibility even a little further back than Tokyo. But it is the spirit of the innovation that we can actually deliver quicker. We bundle it up in a logical way for our customers via the store.
Excellent. Thanks, Jeffrey. I think that kind of lays out, because now we understand what the ServiceNow store concept is as well. All right, let's dive into it. What kind of gifts do you have for us here in the store for this quarter?
Yeah, really good. So to your original point, we're not changing our innovation themes for the year 2022. So in Tokyo, we were talking about experience. We were talking about intelligence. We were talking about agility. And the quarterly store release that actually came out November 3rd, it really, piggybacks on those overall themes. The types of innovations I'm going to be talking about today maybe are some new innovations for your listeners. One, we are introducing a new workplace scenario planning technology. And I'll actually talk about that a little bit further. Let me just introduce the three, and then I'll give you a little bit about detail about each. So we're first going to talk about workplace scenario planning. Secondly, we're going to be talking about some innovations to our ITOM product line with automated service suggestions. And then we're going to talk about some of our industry solutions, in this case, public sector digital services and service request playbook.
Excellent.
I actually probably should just take a moment and introduce the first one. Then that gives you sort of a flavor of some of the innovations we have being delivered. Okay. So workplace scenario planning is actually a technology I'm very excited about, because you look at the macroeconomic climate, you look at what customers are looking to achieve right now as it relates to optimizing their physical workplace. And this is a technology that directly delivers an experience to allow organizations to, one, optimize the space they have, but two, to do it in a way that actually continues to drive productivity within their employees. And so quite simply, this is a new module within workplace service delivery that allows a space planner to handle a major move or a major reconfiguration process. So imagine a scenario where you have two office floors and you have both office floors partially filled. This actually gives the space planner the ability to have a visual interactive drag and drop capability to say, this is how I'm going to reconfigure the space. I'm still going to drive productivity within each of these teams, but maybe I can actually shut down this floor. I can turn off the heat, turn off the services, take costs out of the physical space, as well as drive our sustainability initiatives. And so it's that type of scenario planning, that type of capability that is net new. And this would otherwise be done via spreadsheets and just manual processes for any given organization.
Absolutely. I learned a friend of mine in the VC world who I worked with for many years always told me the best business is when you can ask them, well, what's your biggest competitor? And they say it's a spreadsheet. And that means we need to do something. If you're using spreadsheets, it's probably not the right answer here. Not that spreadsheets are bad, mind you, but it's not the right answer here.
Well, that's right. And then even further than that, you can imagine that as you're going through all these what if scenarios and trying to optimize the space, at some point you actually have to take action. So yes, workplace scenario planning is about the what if scenario analysis, but at that point in time, you actually decide to commit and you're actually going to reconfigure the space. Think of all of the tickets, think of all the downstream work involved with handling a move of that magnitude. And so by having everything on the single platform, you can imagine you click a button and now it's kicking off an entire workflow where any individual that needs to interact with the process to actually complete the move is tasked to complete those activities in a timely fashion. And so there's even this added benefit in terms of efficiencies and time savings by having everything together in one platform. And by the way, organizations might not necessarily get this right the first time. It also gives them the ability to reconfigure, re-optimize, continue to make the best use of the physical space that they have.
Got it. Excellent. You know what else I want to mention? And Jeffrey, if I have this wrong, correct me. generally, if you're already a ServiceNow customer with the platform, these store add-ons they're part of so you don't pay extra for them, right? Or am I wrong?
Yeah, that's actually a good way of looking at it. So for the store releases, if you go to store.servicenow.com and actually look up workplace scenario planning, it will tell you the underlying entitlements you need to utilize this, but it is all enhancements to existing products. And so This is an enhancement to workplace service delivery. So our customers that have the workplace service delivery application suite are going to get access to this for no additional charge. And that's going to be the case for the other products I'm going to be talking about today.
Good. I just want to make sure people realize that we're not, looking to stick our hand in your pocket.
Yeah.
You're a ServiceNow customer, and this comes with it.
All right, let's jump into some of the other ones, Jeffrey.
Yeah, very good. So the second innovation that I'm going to talk about is automated service suggestions. Now, this is a new capability tied to our ITOM product. So once again, to that same conversation we just had, this is an extension to another existing product. And this is really about defining a service blueprint for your organization. As your listeners are going to be well aware, we have a configuration management database. We're actually tracking the relationships between various CIs and other CIs within your organization. And the benefit of that is that when you look at a business service, when you look at an application, it lets you actually build the mapping and to define what is the downstream infrastructure that's supporting that service. Now, maintaining those service maps is complicated. And in the spirit of intelligence, we wanted to allow machine learning to assist a operations analyst in defining these service maps, maintaining these service maps within the organization. And so automated service suggestions is doing just that. It's actually using machine learning to track network traffic and to help build this map to say this application, this business service is supported by these pieces of critical infrastructure. So it is most basic, right? If you are monitoring this network traffic and you see that the email service is degraded, you actually have a real-time view into the infrastructure that's supporting it, giving you a much quicker mode to resolution where you can actually go drill in, get the details and understanding, what servers, what clusters, what other aspects of the overall infrastructure are the root cause of this degradation. So that was just a basic example, but just imagine this at scale. You have all of these service maps being built across your enterprise. Using machine learning to actually help you maintain them is really going to assist the work of some analyst that has to do this day in, day out and keep these up to date.
Look, let's be realistic. Macroeconomic factors are roiling our industry, right? Many industries, not just tech. And at some level, if you're going to have less people, our scale isn't going, the scale of the job, the scale of the infrastructure, the scale of what we have to manage isn't getting less because we have less people. And so, without harnessing things like ML, some AI, ML, whatever you want to call it, right, and more automation, there's no way that it just doesn't equate otherwise. So I think we're going to see more and more.
Yeah,
companies
absolutely.
With these kind of solutions. Yeah.
I mean, the move to hybrid working models is a critical factor of any of the technologies that we're talking about today.
Yeah.
You don't have individuals in the office. And so, using technology to help map this out, it's a net benefit to any organization.
Absolutely. Excellent. All right. What else do we have in the store today, Jeffrey?
Yeah. So the final innovation that I want to talk about.
Go ahead.
So the final innovation I want to talk about is Service Request Playbook. Now, this is an enhancement to our public sector digital services solution. So in our first quarterly store release, we actually launched a new product for public sector. This is really about non-emergency services and helping governments actually manage the work, the intake that's coming in from their constituents. So, a very specific industry solution, but something where, these particular organizations actually need something built for purpose. And so this is about delivering a built for purpose capability where I can actually take intake from some stakeholder within the community. Imagine things like questions around parking violations, or I needed a permit to obtain for some construction that I'm doing. These types of just basic everyday services. And organizations and government agencies need the ability to intake this, but they also need a playbook to be able to actually complete that work. And so these could involve a complex workflow. They involve coordinating many constituents or many agencies within the government service. And having the playbook a single place is, instead of having all of these discrete services where I actually have to have a citizen have to know how to navigate the government organization, I can actually take that initial request and I can handle all the discrete pieces of work in a single playbook to be able to respond to that citizen in a timely way, but also to coordinate all of the different groups that are responsible for delivering that overall service. And so that's what this playbook does. It's a single workspace for an agent, for lack of a better term, to be able to manage all of the work that the citizen is requesting within one location and to be able to deliver that service in a timely and efficient manner.
Excellent. And, when we say public sector, I have some experience, in that. Look, you have the federal space, which is kind of a world unto itself. I forgot the total Fed IT spend. I forgot if it was 20 or 30 or more billion dollars. But then there's also the state and local government public sector, which, collectively is as big or bigger probably. It's just, not as concentrated around the Beltway maybe. But nevertheless, this is not a niche kind of
product. This type of solution really is going to be applicable to any state entity, any local entity, any government, even worldwide, right? Just the
right. I was thinking just U.S. You're right.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, just the concept of responding to citizen inquiries. There's all of these 311 services in the U.S. That's the right type of use case for this capability that I'm talking about.
Sounds pretty cool. So all of these are available in the store now, and it's store.servicenow.com.
That's correct. Right. If you go to store.servicenow.com, you'll even see a banner at the top talking about the November quarterly release and access to any of the resources that we just highlighted today.
Fantastic. So it's quarterly. Will we see another store release next quarter, or?
Actually, I should have mentioned this. It is quarterly, but we have made sure that 2 of the quarters match up to our family releases.
Right? I was just going to say that because we'll have a new city.
So you're going to see Utah. Utah is next.
Utah? That will be... What kind of city is Utah?
I know.
I know my geography, goddarn it.
I know. This is actually the first time we've broken the mold. We're going with an entire state for this particular release.
Well, you got that's we're moving up from cities to state. This puts a lot of pressure on you guys. It better be a big one.
It's going to be huge.
Huge. All right. Jeffrey, thank you so much for coming on Techstrong TV today and telling us about the latest quarterly store releases that are available to ServiceNow customers out there. And look, if these really appeal to you and you're not a ServiceNow customer, maybe it's a good time to go check that out. Jeffrey, thank you for coming on.
Thank you very much for having me.
Come on anytime you like.
All right, we're going to take a break here on Techstrong TV, and we'll be back in just a moment.
CISO Talk, to hear how real-world CISOs are dealing with today's real-world issues.
From enabling secure remote workers to accelerating secure cloud adoption, defending against a pandemic of security attacks and beyond, CISO Talk covers the cyber topics you want to learn about. With your hosts, Unisys CISO Matt Newfield and Media Ops CEO Alan Schimmel, featuring a revolving panel of CISO cyber experts. This is where CISOs talk. Join us on digitalanarchist.com and techstrong.tv.
Previously on Engineering the Change.
It's kind of like being on a football team. You got to make cuts to the roster, right? But we got to take it down to 3 finalists. Her essay was one of the best essays I've ever read in the 3 or 4 times we've done this.
Yeah,
so,
she's in.
Yeah. But there was, to me, Carly epitomizes why we do this. I give extra bonus points to people who can write well and can express themselves, and Donald did express himself. All right, so let's go through this then. Stephanie Sanchez, Donald Brazil, and Carly Duvel are our 3 finalists for this cohort's Engineering the Change Scholarship.
Engineering the Change has literally changed the lives of scholarship winners. Here are our past recipients.
My name is Victoria Roas. I am an immigrant from Brazil. I came to this country when I was 10 years old.
My name is Drew Johnson. I'm a full stack software engineer.
My name is Alina Maluk. I'm from Ukraine. I'm the winner of scholarship from 2 cohorts before me.
The Engineering of Change scholarship that I won last year was life-changing.
I really poured my soul and told my story to them, and a few weeks later I got a call from Alan, and it was, I even cried on the phone, I think. And it was like a life-changing moment.
The program at Boca Code was amazing. It was easy for me with zero experience to learn the fundamentals of software development.
My career has completely changed from barely being able to, hold down a job to now being sought after by some of the biggest tech companies in the world.
Boca Code has built me up.
I got a job at hot fintech software company at the day of graduation.
I think that becoming a software engineer has been one of the most rewarding things in my life.
I am Carly Duberval, mother of 2 amazing children. I have a bachelor degree in accounting.
My name is Donald Brazil. I was born in Haiti. I was raised in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. Growing up, I've always been interested in technology.
Hi, my name is Stephanie. I'm originally from Haiti. I've resided in Miami for wherever it feels. I currently have a degree in psychology, and I enjoy helping people.
I migrated recently to Florida because of insecurity and political issue.
I fell into software engineering as something I would love to pursue.
I feel like there is a void that I still have. There's something tugging at me because I feel like I have not challenged myself to reach my full potential.
Here in the US, my degree is not accepted. I need to work for my family duties.
Winning this scholarship is a great opportunity for me to finally, pursue that career in software engineering. And, I would love to, give back to those who were in my position where they were completely lost and didn't really have any guidance.
My goal is to be a vessel to other people, other underrepresented communities.
Without money and resources, I can't afford to go to Boca Code.
And being a finalist is an amazing opportunity. I would never have thought I would have been even considered.
This field I will be good at it. And I have an opportunity to make an impact on my community and the world.
If I won the scholarship, I will share my knowledge with other Black women, immigrants who share my faith.
I would love to, have the opportunity at the end of the day to showcase those who believe in me, and then, help others who also, would be in the same position that I am.
Because I know my contribution will make a lifelong impact on the world.
Thanks so much for joining us here for this interview today. And you know what? Making it to the finals for this is an accomplishment in and of itself. And I think it really talks about the kind of person you are. And, reading your essay, I was very, very impressed. Where do you see yourself in 5 years?
In 5 years, I will be that software engineer who will help immigrants to achieve their dreams.
5 years, I would love to see myself, slowly opening my organization, have it on the ground, running. I just want to see myself helping others, just like others help me. I just want to give back to those who gave to me.
I see myself hopefully excelling in the field of software engineering, and I don't know exactly what my niche will be. So I know that I'm going to be excelling. I don't know exactly what it'll look like right now, but you guys will be proud.
Why do you want to be a software engineer? What's gonna make you stick through this at the end of the day?
I love it. I can do it. I will do it. Why I will do it? Because I love it.
It's just a great field to get into. The technology portion of it is just something I've always been interested in. As a kid, I've always been interested in computers, phones, gadgets.
I always felt a need to, or a pull toward doing something for someone else. In the field of engineering, allows me to continue to do that, because whether it is in a medical field, the automotive field, just the world of entrepreneurship, there's just so many different ways that I can continue doing good and making an impact.
One of the things that's something that's very near and dear to my heart is, equity, parity, gender diversity, and just diversity and parity on all levels, equality. And I wonder how do you envision going about doing that?
Like I did with my old career, I lift women to accounting in my country. I motivate them, I assist them, and help them to achieve, like I said, to achieve their dream, to be excellent in this field.
I would love to open an organization that can, give back to those and help guide them with the opportunities that I'd had from this experience.
What drives you to do software engineering and not go back to something that you've already known and you've obviously been very successful at?
I would say now everything is technology. So why should I say in accounting? If the world is moving and everything now is tech. I have two brothers. One died in 2007. He was a senior software engineer. My youngest brother is a software engineer. Why not me? It's because I'm woman? No. I want it, I will do it.
At the moment right now, I work inventory for a home installation company. It's a pretty okay job, but it's not what I feel that I was meant to do.
The knowledge I have, I can pass on to other people. I know some of the challenges that our communities face. So with my knowledge and my mentorship, whether it's mentoring one person or just a group of people, exposing them to this field and to just other fields that exist where there's more to life than just what is in front of us. And I believe that I can be a bridge in that gap.
How do you feel like the scholarship is gonna do to you? Like, why is it important for you to win this?
I will share my knowledge with people, with women or immigrants, and use my knowledge to help them.
This scholarship is giving me that opportunity to show the world that, you know, I can do great things.
So this scholarship would definitely assist me in changing the trajectory of my life and hopefully where I can continue this same legacy in helping other people. So,
you know, your essay was amazing. Your answers here today were amazing. You really do represent what engineering the change is all about. Thanks for coming in today, and we can't wait to announce our winners soon.
SecurityBoulevard.com is the leading resource for news, analysis, and education on challenges facing the cybersecurity industry. SecurityBoulevard.com covers all aspects of cybersecurity, including data security, DevSecOps, cloud security, application security, network security, security threats, and more. SecurityBoulevard.com has the largest selection of security content, featuring breaking news, blog posts, podcasts, and more. Visit www.securityboulevard.com to learn more. SecurityBoulevard.com, home of Security Bloggers Network.
This is Techstrong TV.
Hi, I have the great pleasure of being joined by Jeremy Freeman. Jeremy is co-founder and CTO with Allstacks. Welcome, Jeremy.
Hey, it's great to meet you, Mitch. Thanks for having me.
Good to meet you too. Talking developer tools, engineering manager, information development, getting software out the door. Favorite topic of mine. Before we get into that, I'd love to have you tell folks a little bit about you and tell them a little bit about Allstacks.
Yeah, sure. I would love to. So I've been in engineering, moved into engineering leadership for almost 15 years now. I've worked mostly at startups, interestingly enough, going from nothing to actually having to build a real team and solve some of these problems. And for a brief stint, I actually did consulting with my now co-founder, and we got to go out and actually see how many different teams work. It was a great learning experience, getting in the room with leaders, integrating in teams, sometimes for only weeks or a month at a time, and figuring out how to get in, understand what's going on, be productive is just something that we struggled with. And that, ultimately led to what we built at Allstacks. One of the challenges we ran into is even the leadership, the people that did it day to day, struggled to understand exactly where things were and exactly, how teams were onboarding, getting set up, were productive. And we realized that with the advent of all these tools and everything going through SaaS products and platforms these days, all that data was readily accessible. And it just made sense to make it easy to access for leadership so that they could be more effective leaders.
Well, it's not like everybody is automatically headed in one direction on software teams, more or less multiple teams, right? Things are changing constantly, agile, DevOps, et cetera. So it's sort of shifting sand, right? Everybody's kind of running across it, trying not to sink. Exactly. Given all that, as you built out Allstacks and created a product for it, what did you see as some of the biggest challenges? As the engineering managers are getting onto an IRC channel or Slack or whatever they do, or call each other in Zoom and say, "Oh, I wish I could figure this out." What are some of those challenges?
Yeah, it's fun. So we entered the market at a very interesting time. People have been trying to measure engineers for, longer than I've been an engineer, longer than I've been alive for some of these measurements. And there's struggles with everything. A lot of times, measurements tend to get weaponized by leadership. So people are gun shy when someone comes in and says like, "Oh, we need to count the number of lines of code that we're committing so we know how productive our devs are." And you're like, whoa, hold on a second. That's
I can
not
write lots of lines of code if that's
right. Exactly. Yeah, you can drive not just really bad outcomes, but really toxic cultures. And when we started thinking about the problem, it was a balance of, okay, there's some good signal in this data, but you have to make sure you use it the right way. So there's a large part of sorting out just the volume of data that you generate from all this activity to what is actually meaningful for your team, right? And that's, I think, where we found the magic when we were talking to leadership. Like, can we pull out metrics that are meaningful at the right time and actually guide you to making the best decision for your team?
Mm-hmm. Some of the metrics we've evolved to beyond lines of code, and there have been many function points and lots of made up ideas. Everybody trying to figure this out. But now it seems like we're focused on how many deploys do we do per day, hour, week, whatever the measure might be. How often are we checking in code? How many times, and whether we're passing or failing tests, sort of standard measures like that. Are those still valuable measures, or are there better ways of solving this problem?
So they're all great. I think that's the interesting thing about what we're doing is I think about measurement in engineering as more of solving problems for today, knowing that, we're engineers, we love solving problems. Like, let's figure out how to measure this problem. Let's spend a month or two solving it, get it to a good spot, and then we need to move on to the next problem. So like, you can pick different measurements or KPIs, solve them, move on to different ones. And that's sort of the way the world works. It's really hard to find one measure that's golden that works for everybody. But there's a couple that are really helpful, right? So, the door metrics are really great for DevOps teams, for engineering organizations. Knowing how frequently you actually ship code implies a lot of organizational agility. And those types of measures are really good barometers of how sophisticated your team and your engineering processes are.
It seems also like there's an organizational agility, right? Some folks are not at a place where, shipping code once a week would be a big challenge, right? And it isn't a turn the dial from 1 to 11 and poof, you're shipping code multiple times an hour. It is a process. I mean, yes, you have to have the tools, you have to have the process, you have to start, we're doing work in smaller bits, smaller chunks, right? To be able to deliver that, maybe even, think about the architecture of your applications and how it's coded. So how do you, if you're going to build a tool like you have with Allstacks, what data do you take and ingest and look at, or what do you put on top of that data to try to help make some sense of it?
Yeah, there's a lot. We've started with your code repository, your coding activity, and your ticketing system. That's usually where the bulk of your engineering team is engaged. And, we've started to branch out to other places. So you get into your build systems, and we get into communication tools in some cases. And, further down the line, we'll start expanding into other operational metrics, potentially, like your infrastructure monitoring or your road mapping tools even. And the nucleus that we have inside of the engineering team is a really great place to start because, one, you need to know if you're actually delivering code. And there's some really basic measures you can start with. The number of pull requests that your team can get across the line is a really good one. A lot of teams think of that as their basic increment. Then you can move on to, are you getting tickets across the line? Then you start looking at how that maps to, organizational value delivered. So, are we getting epics or milestones shipped? Are we slipping? And then on the other end, you start getting into deployment efficiency, right? So how often do you deploy? Are you constantly breaking the app? And if you break it, how quickly can you fix it? And those help with what I think of as the other delivery KPIs that engineering owns for the business. Can you get your product out there? Can you deliver service to your customers? And can you do it in a consistent, reliable way?
But it's interesting too. There's a lot of emphasis on customer experience and how we can kind of tie that back into metrics that are happening through the workflow pipeline.
Right.
Whether it's through an observability kind of platform or even further back in a designing for customer experience. It seems like thinking about that early in the development process and what kind of metrics, it might be performance oriented, it might be, failure types of situations or break testing or something like that helps with improving a customer experience. So it seems like that's something to consider as you're putting together your metrics.
Exactly. And mapping those is not a non-trivial exercise for leadership, right? It's very easy for, a customer to come in, or your product team may be well aware of, say, performance issues on a report, for example, and say, we need this report to be better performance. And there's an easy KPI there, like maybe it's page load time. But under the hood, it's really hard to make this page better to the engineering team. It'll need to be broken down. You'll need to identify the different services. You'll need to understand, are we continually getting better in various subcomponents of this page? And I think that implies, every other metric. If you start with the customer experience, you can develop really good KPIs. You start deconstructing those, and eventually you can tie those to the activities that your team are doing. Like if we're constantly shipping performance improvements on a regular cadence, we assume, or we can track that that's going to improve this actual customer output.
Google introduced their webpage metrics, right? We're all used to seeing the green, red bars, right? Even that, you realize just a page load metric and what all goes into page load. It may not be your code. It could be the services you're accessing or how you're accessing it and all those kinds of. So, like you said, any metric has a lot of depth into it of, well, what are we talking about in what context and where does it occur in our process, right? Right. It also seems like it's easy to fall into what I call what we usually call vanity metrics, right? That's the lines of code, how many ship, how much code did we ship, how many times did we put into production, which are still maybe valuable metrics in some way, but they aren't the thing, right? They aren't ultimately, I could ship a lot of really bad code if you want a lot of code to go into production. That's not the point, right?
Yeah, I have. Here's a really great little snippet that my co-founder, who's CEO, made, and it was basically, a CTO coming to the CEO saying, "Hey, we shipped 96 times last week," and being really happy. And the CEO is like, "So what does that mean? I don't know what value that means for the business." Mm-hmm. And yeah, that's exactly the type of vanity metric that I've even fallen prey to, like building a product that supposedly helps you avoid this. It's so easy to get lost in the details sometimes, and making sure that you stay on track and can map all this stuff back to business value is hard.
So I imagine one of the hardest things is just getting started, right? Mm-hmm. How do you go from where you are with maybe limited or maybe too much data or no visibility or both, given you have so much information? As folks start to work with a company like yours, what's the place to start? In DevOps, it's CI/CD. Right. When it comes to kind of thinking about engineering the software process and how we manage that, are there some good starting points?
Yeah. So I love starting in places where things tend to get stuck. I think if you sit down and look at your development pipeline, you're like, things tend to hang out here and don't move forward. So if you look at really common places where things tend to get held up, you'll find you start focusing on PRs. So it's very easy for your code to get stuck in code review land. Like, oh, someone made a comment. Oh, it didn't get seen. Now that PR is just sitting out there for 2 weeks. Like making sure you catch that and get those things across the line is a really easy place to start. And, if you're a new team, if you're just reshuffled and restructured your teams, or if you just haven't thought about this holistically as an organization, you may start measuring that and find, oh God, why are we taking so long to actually get code merged? That's a really good place. And then, in a similar vein, you can move on to maybe your QA stages. We actually get code to code complete, but then our QA team is so backlogged, you actually can't review it for weeks. And those are the types of places that are great to start. And a lot of times I would imagine you have a good hunch as a leader, but starting with PRs, starting with your QA cycle times, always a good place to look if you're worried that your team's efficiency is struggling.
I got to believe there's a really good chance when you go talk to someone, they're going to have a pretty good idea, at least where some pain points are, right? Whether it's QA or, it's interesting. You talk about finding the bottleneck too, sort of the theory of constraints, right? Go find the bottleneck and then go from bottleneck to bottleneck. The other also is just handoffs. You're talking about PRs and waiting for somebody. Every time there's a handoff, that's a delay. Automatically, it has to delay if you're handing off to somebody because we aren't code bots, right? We don't immediately pick up on exactly. So there's a lot of places where you can start to examine and maybe even get the data, from a tool or from a platform like yours to help you say, well, here's where the wait times are. Right? Here's where we're spending a lot of time.
And and regardless of how you, sorry.
No, go ahead.
Yeah, and regardless of how you actually track those things, we have an alerting mechanism. Jira built in has an alerting mechanism. You have nudges in all of your source tools, but those are the types of things that can really help you keep track of those. Once you sit down, identify, this is a problem. It's very easy to say, hey, just ping me when a PR is sitting out for 3 days. And there's really easy fixes to some of these problems that can result in saving weeks, maybe even months off of delivery times for some of your major features.
Mm-hmm. Very good. Well, where can folks find out more about AllStacks? I can guess, but I'll let you say.
Thanks for asking. Hit us up at our website, allstacks.com. Come check us out. You can sign up today, right now, get your account set up immediately. And then we can help you with any other questions you have as you start building out your measurement process.
And you're a SaaS service, so not software to install on-prem, or is that an option too?
We don't have an on-prem offering, but we're fully cloud multi-tenant, but we do have ways to connect to your on-prem services or wherever your services live.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would imagine some people might be still running Jira in-house or in the cloud or or GitHub.
Yeah, it's pretty common.
That you're integrating with. Well, good. And there's like a free account to check things out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you can get set up for free.
Okay, very good. Allstack.com. And appreciate Jeremy you come by and talk with us today. And let's share, there's a lot of emphasis on developer productivity. Not that they aren't productive already, but we're always looking for how do we help folks focus and get time to do that work. So it's a great topic and enjoy talking with you about it.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mitch. It was great talking to you.
You bet.
This is Techstrong TV.
Hey everyone, we're back here live in Detroit for KubeCon. I think the show floor is not even officially open until 10:30.
10 minutes ago, yeah. So
no, is it past 10? Oh yeah, it's 11, so it's open. They did a nice job because you don't realize that the booths are so spread apart that you don't have that density and people getting sick, hopefully.
It doesn't feel like you're walking around terribly.
Right, you can feel like it's open. Yeah, good stuff. Anyway, let me introduce you to our guests for this segment. Right here we have Patrick Bergstrom. Yes?
Yep.
Okay.
Good morning.
Yasmin Rajabi. They are both with StormForge. Welcome.
Thank you for having us.
It's my pleasure. So you got to excuse, this is the Motor City.
Yep.
And they got this race car noise running around here every 5 minutes.
Monorail.
Is that what it is? The monorail?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
I don't know if they actually hear it at home because these mics are actually pretty good at filtering, but it's crazy.
Yeah.
Anyway, guys, let's assume they don't know StormForge. We've never heard of StormForge. Patrick, what would you tell people? What's StormForge?
So StormForge, we specialize in what we kind of consider day two operations for Kubernetes, specifically the optimization side of the house. So you think about anyone that's running a cluster of any size, especially as it gets larger, when you get to the 3,000, 4,000, 5,000 namespaces and beyond, it becomes very hard to dial in each individual namespace for the right resource consumption. And that's a huge problem that we've seen at the enterprise now, where we've got these big organizations that are spending millions of dollars on cloud hosting when really they don't need to be. And so what we specialize in is leveraging machine learning to essentially predict the correct amount of resources that each namespace needs. And then you can actually turn us on in automatic mode and we'll go through, make every adjustment for you, save you 40 to 50% on your cloud hosting. And more importantly, it reduces the carbon footprint of your compute capacity, which is which is huge.
That's really huge. Yeah, I read a story in the Times today.
Yeah.
Of all the countries who promised to reduce their emissions and footprints, I think 25 out of 185 are actually doing it.
Wow.
Yeah,
it's miserable, terrible.
Yeah.
And we're all going to pay the price for that.
Yep.
So anything we could do to do that, it is really important. You're
absolutely.
right. So we're here at KubeCon, right? Obviously, it's a crazy show. But you guys had some news recently around StormForge, right? Actually, before we get into that, hold on. I gave them your names. I never gave what you do.
Right. Yeah, so I'm the Chief Technology Officer at StormForge.
CTO,
Yep.
okay.
Head of product.
Head of product. Okay. Good. That's who our people want to talk to. So
Perfect.
good stuff.
Yeah.
All right. Let's jump into the news then.
Yeah.
So we had a launch a couple weeks ago, actually, that enables our users to scale way more efficiently. So we're honestly right now the only software that can provide recommendations for both vertical and horizontal scaling. And typically what we hear from our users is when they have the HPA enabled for Kubernetes, it typically scales on CPU, and then if they want to vertically right-size that, if they change the request for CPU, then it can lead to CPU thrashing if you're trying to enable the VPA and the HPA at the same time. And so the challenge that we've heard from our users is I want to be able to scale horizontally in a resource-efficient manner. So I want to do the right sizing vertically, but I don't want to then make that problem exponential across my environment. And so with our latest launch, the machine learning that Patrick talked about, we look at your data and continuously provide you recommendations that will then right-size your application, but also give you the recommendation for when you should scale your HPA so that you're scaling the most resource-efficient manner.
I love it. We started off saying it's about day 2 Kubernetes, right? And a lot of people hear names or phrases like that, they think they understand what it means. But really, you guys truly are day 2. Yeah. You're not about how to set up Kubernetes, how to do all that. These are real world, real life issues that people run into once they've set up their Kubernetes infrastructure, and now they want to start optimizing. They want to start scaling horizontally and vertically, but not one at the expense of the other.
Exactly.
One of the things I hear when I talk to people out there is, you guys talk like the whole world's on Kubernetes already, and we're just looking. We're just starting. I wonder, to a certain extent, we all live in our own bubbles.
Yep.
If you're involved in day 2 Kubernetes, Eureka, everyone you talk to is,
on Kubernetes.
On Kubernetes, and we're about day 2 issues. But real life, what are you seeing out there from companies who come to you?
Yeah.
Are they premature?
I think it really is that day 2 challenge, right? Before I worked at StormForge, I was a VP of operations at United Health Group, and we used Kubernetes. And the way that we used it was very like managing a massive cluster, and we used automation for everything.
Cluster.
Yep, we used automation for everything that we can. It was segmented. We had multiple clusters depending on like the security space you're in and everything.
Okay, I got you. That sounds like a disaster.
Right. Yeah. But no, but it boils down to you have all these application teams that are being told, hey, you have to go to Kubernetes, and it's also now on the application team to determine what they need for compute, memory, all their requirements, and they don't know how to use Kubernetes. And so in the end, when I put on like my SRE hat and I'm using Kubernetes as an SRE, I'm going to dial the CPU all the way to the right, dial the memory all the way to the right, so I prevent throttling, I prevent getting killed, and my app's happy as a clam.
And you just pay a fortune.
And then the company pays a fortune. But as an SRE, like I don't care about that, right?
I'm making my SLOs.
Yeah.
I got it.
And I've seen in the last couple years now this whole FinOps idea that's coming about. And Yasmin, I know you've talked to some customers that are really concerned with that.
Oh, it's a huge problem, a huge issue.
Yeah.
One of the challenges that we're seeing is, to Patrick's point, like the humans are the same. So the people that were working on building applications for like a large e-commerce app, those settings that they'd have to tune, it was like 1 or 2 things. And now they're moving those applications to Kubernetes, and the challenge is, okay, what do I set it to? I'm going to set it to the max that I can because that's what I know. And what we're seeing is that it's a lot of guesswork. Developers are looking like, I'll check out my Grafana dashboard, maybe I'll just double it or something, and that's what I'm going to go with. And then the SREs that have to deal with it are like, what did you do? The FinOps team is knocking at the door saying, I have these reports. I see that we're way overspending on cloud costs, but they don't have the tools to actually go fix it. There's a lot of tools out there that'll point out the problem, but actually taking it a step further to give you the configuration that goes out and fixes the problem and does that continuously is a gap that we hear from our users.
Absolutely. I think that's a huge gap because, you're right. FinOps is very good at saying, hey, this instance, is costing us $25,000 a month, right? And we get, based upon resources and what we see being out, we should be able to cut that in half.
Yeah.
Okay, go have at it.
Yeah.
Go do it. And it's one thing to even do it, like, let's say, in a conventional hypervisor environment where we have 15, 20 years of data to play with. In Kubernetes, we don't.
Yeah.
For the most part. I mean, maybe Google does, but we don't have that kind of basic knowledge base to say what is the right dial setting.
Well, and it's interesting because every application is different too. Like if you're running .NET, it's going to be different from Java, from Go, from Python, from Node. Everything's going to require different configurations.
I agree.
Yeah.
And if you're forcing those engineers to make that trade-off decision of like, hey, you need to cut costs, they're not just going to cut down their CPU because then you're trading off resiliency, and they don't want to be the person that made the change that resulted in some error, some failure. And so that's where really knowing the balance and where, like, I think machine learning is the best solution for that, because then it's based on data. You're deciding what those configurations are and then making those decisions based on the data and what the machine learning comes up with, rather than the guesswork of someone trying to figure out how is this going to impact me. There's way too many parameters and configurations that you have to take into account.
And not only that, but it's one thing to do it when you have a dozen namespaces, but when you're on the tune of 7,000, 10,000, 12,000 namespaces, like sure, you can throw humans at the problem, but that'll only scale so far.
Scales, right.
Yep.
It's crazy.
Even if you spin up a project, it's like maybe you'll look at it once and then you might revisit it again in a year. Whereas with something like machine learning, to Yasmin's point, it's perfect for it because it's taking the guesswork out of it, and we could literally do it every hour on the hour if we wanted to. So
it's great, man.
Yeah.
Let's talk about. All right, sounds great. We want to try it. Where should people be on their Kubernetes path before so they don't waste their time? And then once they're there, how do they engage with StormForge?
I think that's really the power of our platform. So we have two products on our platform, and the first one is more of a proactive. So as you're developing your Kubernetes application and you want to deploy it to production, we allow you to run load tests and experiment on what is that right configuration before you deploy. So in that sense, you're being proactive. And then more the day two story that we're like really strong about is once you're there at a large scale, how do you deal with it? So when you're fully deployed, you have Kubernetes up and running, and you're looking at your cloud costs, and you're like, oh, it's not looking great. That's where it's more of a set it and forget it, because you can trust that the software will come up with the right recommendations, and if you desire, actually go out and deploy those recommendations.
It's early, day one out here, but it's already a theme I'm hearing, which is, hey, the software is now getting smart enough. Trust it. Yeah. It will tell you and do the right thing to be the most efficient, to get you the answer you need, to put it out there. I love that.
Yeah, absolutely.
How do people engage with StormForge? Where do they go?
StormForge.io. Yeah.
IO.
Yep. And you can find us in booth 91 here at KubeCon.
If you happen to be watching on your phone or something.
Yeah.
And then, is there a free trial? Is there?
Yeah, absolutely.
If you're interested in getting started, there's a button on our website. We're happy to reach out, do a trial with you, walk you through kind of the platform, and we have some Kubernetes experts. They're all CK.
I would imagine you do.
Yep. We're happy to kind of diagnose and then work with you on the right path forward.
I love it, man. All right, StormForge.io. They are live here at KubeCon or Cloud Native Con. It's not all KubeCon,
Yeah.
And check them out, or you can just check them out on their website, get a free trial. Patrick, Yasmin, thank you for joining us. Enjoy the rest of your week. It's only Wednesday. We're here till Friday.
Yeah, it'll be a great week. Thank you so much.
Man. Excellent. Yasmin, a pleasure meeting you. We're going to take a break. We're in Detroit. We'll be back in a moment.
is Techstrong TV.
Hey guys, we're at the BMC Exchange event and we're talking with one of the leaders of the IT department for the city of Miami. And we're going to be talking about what was the impact of COVID post the pandemic, because frankly, we all talked about what was happening during it, but I think IT has been forever changed. So let's just talk about, we know that COVID's not going away, but we are getting better at living with it. So what does that mean from a work perspective, and how did that impact the city of Miami?
Absolutely, Mike. Talking about change, we're no longer the IT department. We actually the Department of Innovation and Technology, which I like the name that we actually have for about 4 years now, because the changes and how innovative the city has become due to the changes that the pandemic actually forced us to do. We were fortunate to actually have done some great things prior to the pandemic that allows us to actually put all the employees being able to work from home in a week and a half, which municipalities in other areas, probably smaller than the city of Miami or even bigger, were not as ready, and it took them months to actually get that going. So that helps the city of Miami on making sure that actually continues with the revenues, providing the services that actually the citizens and the business require. So that helped us a lot. One of the things that we did is, prior to the pandemic, we started actually utilizing technology to help them to utilize tools for collaboration. So being able to actually do it, but since the need was not there, the adoption was going too slow. So, and I was the advocate, I was the champion to actually get that going, because I know that it was going to help the city, it was going to create a lot of efficiencies as well. But it wasn't working. So I think someone actually said from up there and says, I'm going to send you the pandemic and I'm going to help you out on that. So the adoption became automatic, and it helped us incredible with that. And since then, the city has changed completely. Like I mentioned before, in public sector, you can hear that we're going to have employees working virtually from home. And now it's a transformation. It's something that is we're able to actually talk and have that hybrid environment because we learn about the good things that we did, and performance didn't go down, didn't degrade at all. On the contrary, actually, we were performing more, employees were happier, and I always say a happy employee produces more, and that we have actually experienced that. There are a little bit of changes now, that because we're kind of testing again if we're going to bring the employees back or not. We have done a little bit of changes, and we're just testing what's the results of that, and what we had to do to make sure that actually we continue doing business and providing the services to our citizens and the business that transact with the city.
They say luck is the residue of good design, so it sounds like you guys were doing some things up front that just happened to come together.
Correct.
How is the way that the IT department thinks about itself changed as a result of all of this? Are they constantly on call 24/7, or are they still operating in more of a 9-to-5 mindset? Or how do they react when there are hiccups in the system? Are they much more responsive, agile, both not just technically, but culturally? How has it changed?
Well, we actually are having a challenge now about capacity. So obviously we're working towards, and that doesn't happen overnight. So when it comes to actually responding to any incident or anything like that, we have the processes in place to make sure that actually we reach out to our teams, and depending on the crisis or the incident that is happening, we bring the right resources, and actually we increase the resources that are needed through the night, through the day, whatever the time actually may happen. So I think we're okay on that sense, and we understand that actually the city doesn't work 24/7, so that helps us a lot. But system may go down, at the time that actually during the night, they have to be ready to be operational to continue with either the revenues or providing the services, being able to procure, being able to pay employees the next day. So we have to react to that immediately. And so far, I think we have had an amazing response from our team. I'm very proud to actually say that I have a very good team I don't do anything without them, and they are the ones that actually have been doing all these amazing things that have helped us to actually continue being a leader in technology from the public sector standpoint.
Now you guys are transitioning your ITSM platforms right now. What are you guys looking at? You're thinking about moving over to some of the latest versions from BMC. What's driving that?
I always say that how you actually do the things or transform things. This is one of the internal ones. We want to make sure that we provide the best customer service to our customers, in this case, our internal departments. We identify a little bit of some deficiencies with the system that we were using. It helped us for almost 6 years, Remedy Force, but we realized that actually through demos that we actually saw and main on the goal that we have, the objective to provide the best customer service. Helix is the one that we're transforming right now. We're in the middle of the implementation with the target date mid-December to go live. And that's going to help us a lot because it's a system that is very data-driven oriented, and we want to make sure that we have the right, we're measuring the right things to have the right metrics to show the organization or analyze ourselves where are the deficiencies that we have and how we can actually get better. And we're definitely looking forward to that.
Now the city has a mayor who's very IT savvy, shall we say. We have seen maybe more business executives than ever starting to appreciate the value of IT. We've been talking about the divide between IT and business executives and governments forever and a day. Is that getting better in your mind, or are those things starting to come together where the conversation has, or the tenor of the conversation has at least shifted to something that's a little more proactive?
Well, definitely helps a lot, but also puts a lot of pressure on our department because he's a very active mayor, and he talks about technology incredibly. And, sometimes he promotes things that our team is not ready for it, but we have to react to it. About a year and a half ago, he mentioned this. I want to make sure that actually we have the technology in place to be able to allow the companies that are coming or startups to being able to actually open your business from your cellular. And we were like, oh, wow. And through the team, we actually put it together, and you can actually open your business in the city of Miami from your phone. So he helps a lot, and also helps promote the understanding of how important technology is in the overall strategy of the organization. And now it's not a separate strategy. So the technology strategy is not aligned into the overall strategy. It's embedded in it, so that way it's part of the overall strategy, and that helps a lot. Also, as a department, usually technology departments are not very good marketers, and that's what actually we fall into all the time in a position that we do an amazing job, but we don't promote it or we don't advertise what was the value that actually added to the organization. And I think we're becoming better on that, and that is helping a lot getting the support, the upper management and technology. One of our priorities is cybersecurity, but we're making sure that we're creating an organization that is data-driven for decision making. And that's adding another layer on our department, that we're actually, through that technology, being able to help leaders where they can actually act on many things without reacting to things. So they can actually go directly to the problems that they are having, solving them before actually they become problems, and they have seen the value of that. And that's one of our priorities on data.
Mm-hmm. The mayor has also signaled his interest in running for president. Do you think that IT issues will become a bigger part of the political discourse, because it does affect the quality of life of people? Do you think that as we go along, we will see more government leaders saying we're going to drive around digital business transformation and change people's lives? And is that going to change the tenor of the conversation as a society?
Well, I definitely, I think, several organizations now, not only in public sector, are depending a lot in creating that differentiator from any organization if you actually implement the right technology. And having a politician actually talking the way it is and transforming this region, South Florida, bringing different talent in technology. So that's a great thing, because before it was very hard to actually get the right talent to do the right things. And now, by being virtual, being able to actually hire from different location, that helps definitely to do it. And the way we're seeing with how he promotes trying to make the city of Miami the next Silicon Valley, we're seeing a lot of technology companies coming, which 5-6 years ago, that was something that was very difficult to us. And his aspirations politically, I think, is going to help this region incredibly.
Mm-hmm. What's that one thing that you wish that if you had a magic wand, somebody would fix for you tomorrow? Is there a particular IT issue or a thing that you wake up in the morning and go, this thing just doesn't go away. How do I make this issue be fixed permanently, forever, using technology? What's that one thing that kind of like gnaws at you?
Probably not using technology, but our customers, the leaders from other departments that actually all the time wake up and get out of bed and say, I'm gonna actually get this initiative going, and they always forget that there's a technology component in that initiative. And if I could change that mentality, it says from the moment that I think about it, I want to have the technology department involved. It will make those initiatives a lot more successful, and it will help the entire organization. So not that the department will look better, but it will actually help the entire organization with the outcomes and success initiatives.
All right, folks, you heard it here first. Every IT event is a correlation to some sort of business or government or process event. We just need to make sure everybody's thinking along the same way at the same time. Otto, thanks for coming by.
Absolutely. Thank you, Mike, for having me.
DevOps.com is the #1 online destination for DevOps education and community building. DevOps.com covers all aspects of DevOps, including DevOps best practices and tools, DevOps culture, DevSecOps, business impact, continuous testing, continuous delivery, and more. DevOps.com has the largest collection of original DevOps content, featuring breaking news, blog posts, podcasts, and more. Visit www.devops.com to learn more. DevOps.com, where the world meets DevOps.
This is Techstrong TV.
Hey guys, thanks for the throw. We're here with Dave Stapleton, who's CISO for Cyber GRX. And we're talking about the current emotional state of CISOs and the security personnel in general. Dave, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. I'm really happy to be here.
In some ways, it's kind of the best and worst of times, right? The best of times is the fact that more people are paying attention to cybersecurity than ever. The worst of times is, well, you might wind up going to jail if you make one wrong move. So the question is, Dave, what is the current emotional toll that's being taken on the cybersecurity folks, and is it getting too heavy?
Well, too heavy? That's an interesting question. It is heavy, I'll tell you that. I think the reasons that you've just highlighted. I have this little mental model where I use my mom as an example. She is not a cybersecurity professional, nor has a whole lot of experience in it. So if she asked me about a cybersecurity threat or news item, I know it really must have gone mainstream. And let's just say we've had a lot of conversations about cybersecurity lately. It is absolutely in the mainstream. The attacks seem to be getting more sophisticated. The volume attacks seems to be going up. The impact of these attacks seem to be more widespread and getting to real humans where they're starting to feel it a little bit in ways that perhaps were a little bit theoretical to them in the past. I was just talking with some students, and we were talking about how does cybersecurity play into everyday life? And started going down a list of examples. One of the examples I gave was warfare. I mean, this is crazy. We're getting to where, the Ukrainian cybersecurity teams joined up with ESET to block a major attack against their electrical grid. So it's just pervasive. And I think the stakes feel very, very high, which creates a lot of weight for cybersecurity teams, but particularly I think CISOs and other cyber leaders who are really responsible and accountable.
Are we starting to see something that looks like a brain drain because people are leaving the field? I mean, we're recruiting people all the time, but it may not be a great thing if we wind up losing as many people as we wind up bringing in, or maybe even if we bring in twice as many people, the brain drain will be heavy. So what is the impact of all this?
Yeah, it's definitely something to be aware of. And I think, I don't know that I would go quite as far as to say that I'm concerned at this point that we have such a mass exodus from the industry that we're experiencing a significant brain drain. I think conversely, the more acute challenge right now is encouraging and incentivizing young people and others who are trying to make shifts in their careers to move into cybersecurity. Last time I checked on cybersec.org, I think it was something like 770,000 unfilled cybersecurity positions in the United States alone. So we have a problem even just getting people in the door in the first place. And then certainly as folks find the stresses to be overwhelming, or maybe the rewards to not kind of match up and balance that out, and they leave the workforce, that just compounds the problem of how do we fill these roles that are really necessary in order for us to do our jobs as cybersecurity professionals around the nation, when we have shortages almost kind of coming from both ends, as far as the initial recruitment and then the retention of qualified folks later on in their careers.
Is the expectation just too high? I mean, if you got this many attacks and the guys are getting smarter and we only have so many resources, are we expecting cybersecurity professionals to pull off a daily miracle? And maybe some days they already do, but we just don't appreciate it because you don't see it. But the question I would have is, do we need to level set our own expectations of what's feasible here?
Yeah. I mean, I don't mind sometimes thinking of myself as a miracle worker, Michael. No, I kid. There is this kind of common refrain. It says something along the lines of, hey, the bad guys only have to get it right once. Security teams have to be right 100% of the time. And I think that kind of sentiment and mentality is part of what's adding undue pressure and setting the wrong expectations. If we are, as cyber leaders, are going to our leadership and boards and saying, my job is to prevent any type of cyber incident from ever occurring in this organization, you've automatically set an expectation that's not very realistic. I think a more realistic and perhaps somewhat cynical or pessimistic, but again, realistic idea is it's not so much a matter of if, but when. And so you can't set the bar so high that it's realistically unachievable. It just doesn't make any sense. So I think one of the major things we have to do in order to prevent this kind of complete burnout and the stress from becoming too overwhelming is be clear with our leadership as cybersecurity professionals about what we can and cannot do, and make sure that we understand what their expectations are for us as well and evaluate those. And there are some organizations where the leadership is going to say something like, yeah, your job is to prevent there from ever being a cyber attack that's successful in our organization. If I hear that from leadership, a CEO or a board member, I'm going to have a lot more conversation with them to try to maybe course correct a little bit their expectations and their thinking on how this whole cyber thing works. Because unfortunately, we can't get it right 100% of the time. And it's a constant cat and mouse. And it's why I think folks are starting to think more about things like resiliency and not always prevention as the way to handle cybersecurity.
Are we getting better at making this more of a team sport? And by that, I mean, we seem to be getting more of the IT operations folks involved to run security operations. We see more of the developers getting involved in application security and things like DevSecOps. So will that reduce the stress on the cybersecurity team if we kind of think about this more as a group effort?
Yeah, I think it reduces sometimes the level of effort, right? Because we're spreading these tasks out to a broader set of hands. We're getting some support and some assistance from those organizations and departments. I don't know that it reduces the stress significantly, because at the end of the day, ultimately, it comes back to the security team. They are ultimately responsible for the outcomes related to cybersecurity and oftentimes privacy as well. So I think in so much as folks might be feeling rightfully burned out just because there's so much to do, and it's a serious problem. I've got plenty of people on my team, for example, who I have to coach. Like, you can't keep working 12-hour days. I know there's an unending list of things you can do, and my expectation is not that you're going to do everything. So from that perspective, as far as like, I need to step away from the keyboard from time to time, it's really helpful to be able to spread out some of the responsibility and the individual tasks. But when it comes down to it, if there is a successful cyber attack, some kind of an incident, it's the CISO who has to go talk to the board and potentially the press, and go to court, and in some cases, as we're starting to see now, potentially even go to jail. So I don't know that it reduces the stress associated with that kind of liability and responsibility very much.
Are we seeing advances in automation? We hear a lot about all things AI these days. Will that help reduce some of the stress as well, or is that kind of more on the wishful thinking side of things?
Well, marketing teams certainly seem to think that slapping AI or machine learning onto their marketing materials is definitely the answer, and that that security professionals must believe that that's the answer to everything. It is absolutely an additional tool in our toolbox, and it speeds our time to identification, time to response, those types of things. It gives us analytical insights that would be all but impossible if we tried to fuel those by just human intervention and analysis. So there's plenty of upside, I think, to using AI. Unfortunately, anytime a tool like that comes out, it can be used for good or evil. And so our adversaries are using AI. However, we just have to keep in mind the fact that when we create a weapon that maybe we're going to use for good, that weapon then does exist for people to use for ill intent as well.
How realistic is it for an organization to maintain cybersecurity themselves these days versus relying more on a services provider? Because to our earlier point, you're never going to find enough people, and you're not going to be able to retain them anyway, because there's always somebody who wants to hire them. So at some point, should this just be a flat out service that is a shared resource for a lot of different companies?
Well, I think many companies are treating it that way absolutely right now. They've decided there's too much overhead in trying to develop, hire, continue to train and retain your own security team, and develop these specialty areas that you can hire an MSP to do for you. The beauty of, I think, the MSP model is that they can specialize in specific areas where they can dig deep and leverage decades of experience in particular areas and be really excellent in those areas. The challenge comes when you're trying to produce that for your own organization or your own team. You find a lot more jack of all trades type of opportunities as far as bringing in, recruiting, and retaining that talent. The problem with the MSP is, one, there can be a lack of accountability and clear direction on prioritization and that type of thing. So you might find that they've been kind of going down a path that was not necessarily what you wanted. It can also be quite expensive. If you're talking about really outsourcing your entire security program, that is financially going to require a lot of investment from your CFO. And I wonder how often organizations are finding that they can get that kind of investment versus potentially saying, look, we might not have the same level of excellence and expertise, but at this organization, based on our threat profile and our acceptance of risk and sort of our risk tolerance, we believe that we can get by with a B+ security team that we can create internally, rather than having to fork out however much for more of an A+ MSP driven security team. So there's a factor of just individual risk tolerance and needs that comes into that as well.
Risk versus resources, of course, have always been an issue, but as the economy gets a little tougher, is that becoming harder to balance if you're an organization? Because you may not get the additional funding that you're looking for in 2023, even though There's a lot of people who would say cybersecurity is recession resistant, but reality is funds are funds and everybody's fighting for them. So what's your sense of how much more stress does the current economic climate add to the equation?
I don't know if you've got mics in our conference rooms here at CyberGRX or not, but we were having this very conversation yesterday. I think that adds significant stress. I think personally, I believe the next year is going to be a bit of a roller coaster ride for a lot of security professionals. As organizations feel the macroeconomic uncertainty and want to tighten the belt, be more conservative with their spending, they're going to start looking at prioritization. And it's interesting, when times are great, everyone seems to get a little bit of love, and it's not too hard to eke out the resources that you need. And when times get tight and that inspection happens, you really start to understand what the true priorities of your organization are. And my concern or my fear is that a lot of CISOs, for example, might get a bit of a rude awakening when they realize where cybersecurity really does rank as far as the priorities of their organization. I mean, if you work for a for-profit organization, you know that security can't be the top priority. It just can't be. You have to continue to make profits. So where do those cuts start to come in? Where do you start to feel the pinch? I think a lot of security teams are going to be asked to basically do more or do the same with same or less. So probably budgets are going to stall, or in some cases even go down. And we're already seeing, a lot of large companies participating in a lot of layoffs right now. And I don't know how many of those organizations absolutely needed to do those layoffs. Maybe they were thinking it would be great if they had the good opportunity, and then you start to see Twitter and Amazon and others do it. It's like, okay, well, let's just jump in now. We don't make a splash. Or how many of them actually needed to make those changes? But that is a situation that I certainly hope most security teams don't find themselves in, because as we mentioned already, the talent pool doesn't exist for the current work that needs to be done in cybersecurity, much less if you start to take those folks away.
So what's your best advice to folks to reduce the stress, other than the fact that maybe they should go to the gym, or some might indulge in some libation or another? But, what's the practical thing to do here?
Yeah, unfortunately, I think you joke a little bit there, but unfortunately, a lot of CISOs have turned to various vices to try to, I guess, take the edge off of the stress. And it's very tempting. And, CISOs have higher rates of things like alcoholism and even suicide. So it's pretty serious. I think one that I mentioned before is making sure you have those hard decisions with your leadership and establish the expectations up front. Don't get surprised by that later, or don't have that hanging over your head wondering, well, what would happen if we actually did have an incident? Like, do I get immediately sacked, or is there some conversation? How does that work? What are people expecting of me? Now's the time to go and have those really frank, really direct conversations, and come ready to set your own expectations. I would say, too often CISOs, I think maybe we're still growing into this executive role, and we're a little timid or shy, and we don't want to, come and say, hey, this is kind of what I demand. This is what I want to come from you. And so just come ready to say, this is how I think it should be, and have those conversations and be clear with the expectations up front. And then, yes, pay attention to your mental and physical well-being. Take the time off. You got to set boundaries. It is very difficult to do that. Every single day when I finish up my workday, there are 10 to 20 more things that I really wanted to get done that day. Absolutely, 100%. Every single day that's going to happen. But I can't allow that to make me modify the way that I live my life outside of work. I never stop working. If I just, had to get everything done and check every box before I called it. So you just got to set some guardrails to protect yourself, and then listen to yourself. Don't be afraid to talk to somebody. If you need to, meet with a professional and just kind of go through, hey, my head's in a weird space right now and I need to talk it out. I think, and we got to get over the stigma that somehow therapy and other kind of professional mental health services there's some kind of a stigma around them. We got to get past that and really think about what's best for our own, physical and mental health.
Arguably, therapy should be required for all security professionals, because
I love it.
The fundamental thing is, it is a high stress job, and there's a lot of other jobs that probably need the same level of therapy. Hey, Dave, thanks for being on the show.
Absolutely. Thanks so much.
All right, back to you guys in the studio.
is Techstrong TV.
Hey guys, thanks for the throw. We're here with Shani Prucci, who's a consultant with Bishop Fox, and they do all kinds of interesting things around security design. And the question is what exactly are the issues that people are running into these days? Because as we all know, luck is the residue of good design, as they say. So maybe you might want to start out with a plan. Shani, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much for having me on.
So what exactly are the issues that people are running into with design? Because so much of what we do is reactive. I'm not sure we have a great plan going in. Maybe just walk us through, what are you seeing that people do that make you shake your head?
Yeah, so we've seen over the past few years that we have this shift left ideology that's starting to enter the information security, the cybersecurity space, even though it's been around within the application design community for maybe 2 decades now. And what we're really finding is that by only worrying about security concerns later, after the product's been designed, while everything is going through implementation, you really find structural issues. So for example, you may find one case of cross-site scripting or SQL injection that is actually indicative of SQL injection throughout the entire application, and such that if you mitigate that one case, you're not preventing it from popping up again if, let's say, you expand your site. All your new endpoints that talk to the same database may have the same instance because you haven't addressed it at the root of the problem. And this has become such a concern that OWASP actually added it to their 2021 top 10 vulnerabilities. They created an entire new category of insecure design, because we really see that when security anti-patterns are in place, so that is the contrast to what we would consider secure design patterns, such as defense in depth, which we all know about. These are patterns that get touted when we talk about the basics of security. When we have these anti-patterns that are in place, these really become a structural issue that can end up as, all the common vulnerabilities we're used to seeing, like authentication issues and stuff like that.
And if I keep looking at that list that you described there, I would shake my head. It's the same ones year in and year out, and we seem to be repeating the same vulnerabilities over and over again. So what is the fundamental problem? Is it just the way we didn't teach the developers the fundamentals of security, or is there something else going on in the environment?
I think really the basis of it is that we're only bringing security in after the design phase. Some organizations are getting a lot better, and once the basic design phase is complete, they'll pass off the design to the security team to do a review. But even then, that's starting too late, because at that point, the security team is still infringing upon the developer's idea, and there's already going to be pushback. Really, our argument is that from the beginning, the security team should be involved with the developers in saying, here are the problem points. Here's where data is flowing into different components, and that data may or may not be trusted. So let's say if I have a user sending data from the internet and now it's hitting the application, that data from the internet should be untrusted. I don't know what's in it. And when it's coming into my application, that's entering a trusted area where I'm running things in an escalated permissions because it's running within the application context. Knowing that, I should be able to say, okay, here's the data that's coming in. What's the data I'm expecting? And where further in the application will this impact? Is this going to a database? If so, I need to worry about SQL injection. If not, that's not a huge concern, but you need to not only identify where are you entering these trust zones, but also what is the later context. And based on that later context, you can then decide what are the appropriate controls. Now, I don't think it's necessarily a flaw on the part of the developers, right? Because even if you have secure design, the implementation can be insecure. And if your implementation isn't secure, you can still find a host of security vulnerabilities that you can get through. And as long as the developers have secure coding guidelines, I don't think that's necessarily an issue on their part. It's really when the security team can get involved.
So how far will we shift left? Because can the developers, do they have the expertise required? Or do we need to kind of maybe lean left and we need to put more guardrails in the systems that prevent them from making mistakes in the first place? And that's kind of the process. Or is it kind of like this overarching thing that spans all the way from the developer to the CI/CD environment, and we just have to figure this whole thing out on an end-to-end basis?
I don't think it's necessarily about putting guardrails in place. I think what it means is having a security champion who, during the design process, fits in with the developers. It doesn't need to be security taking over the development process, right? Because that's not what security does. They're not the developers, they're not the designers. Really, what we're hoping for is that there starts to be a security champion, a delegate of the security team who sits in during the initial design and has that conversation with the developers. And over time, the developers can start developing those skills themselves. So really the skills we're talking about are threat modeling, is identifying where you have those trust boundaries and saying, okay, well, what can go wrong when things cross the trust boundary and how can we prevent it? Really, that is the most basic aspect that we're looking at, because by doing that, you can also address and prevent using those anti-patterns.
Do you think as we go along that we will see the emergence of something that looks like a security engineer? We have site reliability engineers, and I'm wondering if we might see somebody who is a specialist who works with developers to ensure security in the same way that SREs ensure reliability.
I certainly hope so, to be quite honest, because we see, like you said, the vulnerabilities in the top 10 keep on repeating. They keep on coming up. And even if they're not exactly the same, right? You can't say that cross-site scripting and SQL injection is the same. But at the end of the day, they come back to the same anti-pattern. They come back to this anti-pattern of allowing data to become code. And that anti-pattern is inherent in the design of the application. And so I really hope that there does start to be either an official position or even an unofficial alliance between the security and design teams within an organization to start that from the very beginning. Because we do see like security architecture professionals within huge organizations, right? They have dedicated security engineers who review the design of applications. I would just argue that may happen a little bit too late in the process, because at that point, the design already exists. And if you're going back with any proposed changes, there may already be pushback. It's like, well, this is counter to how we wanted it to work, or this would require a complete overhaul of functionality.
Do you think as we kind of move down these whole conversation that the cultural divide is just too big between security and developers to bridge, because it's been going on forever? Developers think of security as something to avoid an end run, and the security people think of developers as the root cause of all their problems. And how do we kind of get all these people together in a way that they don't wind up killing each other?
To be quite honest, I think that most developers these days understand the role of security. I think that society as a whole in the past even 5 years has had a huge shift in how they view security. Even if you're not in the community, you hear about all of the breaches. I get family members who are not in the tech community asking me questions about it. And so society as a whole has a lot greater understanding of cybersecurity. And I'd argue that as an extension of that, developers are aware of it. And developers these days, I think, have to have that view. And I think they also feel it, right? Because when there's an issue, the developers are the ones who have to fix it. They're the ones who get told, okay, like this is the problem, and this is what caused the vulnerability. You need to go fix it now. So I think it's also in their best interest to start doing secure design, because it means that when there's an issue to mitigate, they can be like, oh, there's, maybe if there is an issue to mitigate, they can fix it at the most base, or they're able to avoid having to make all of those changes because it is because there's a less chance of there being a repeating vulnerability.
In the land of application development, we have this notion of design thinking. It's kind of a way of getting people to build applications that are a little easier to use because they have some empathy for the developer or the actual end user. Is that kind of what we're looking at here? Is this kind of a design thinking approach to security where we're going to sit down and say, look, there are some fundamentals here that you need to master and you need to just make sure you're walking through these things, but it's not rocket science.
Absolutely. I think that there are some really basic considerations that need to be made. And I really think that that's going to I think that's really going to become part of the development process, that these are the things that we need to keep in mind, similar to a checklist, but less rigid, because these are very general ideas. And I will say that just like, you have in design thinking that you want to make things easy on the user, we have a similar concept in patterns and anti-patterns, that we do not want to present any barrier in the security of an application that is so difficult that the user would find a way around it. And I think that's also something that developers need to keep in the back of their minds, that if you take the security, way past where it needs to be in an application, users are either going to not use your service, or they'll find a way around the security in your application. So whether it's, having MFA or, requiring some very extreme password rules, they're going to find a way around it. And that's going to diminish the security of your application, the security that you've worked really hard to build in.
All right. What is your best advice to somebody who sits up higher level in the food chain of an IT organization and has this development team on the one side and the security team on the other, to kind of bring it all together and reach some level of cohesion in these groups? Because I think a lot of them look at it and they're a little frustrated because everybody speaks their own language and nobody knows exactly what the other one is talking about. So how do I have this moment to get around the Tower of Babel?
I think it really looks like integrating someone from the security team within the development team, is have that person from the security team or that select group of people. If you have a whole bunch of applications being developed, you don't want to just stress one person out with having to handle everything. So really it depends on the scale of the operation, but really have that person become the dedicated developer security communication, and they should immerse themselves in the world of the developers. When we do a threat modeling engagement, I spend time reviewing the architecture documentation. I meet with the application developers and ask them all of the questions I may have. And for me, I'm coming in with no knowledge of what it looks like on the back end. I know very little. And in a few hours, I come up to pace to understand, where I'm at. If you're within an organization, you can do that so much more easily and with a lot greater flexibility, because you can just sit in on those developer meetings. You can ask basic questions. You have a lot more access to formal or even informal documentation that exists. And you can also start becoming part of that decision process. So I think it's really about taking a single person or a small group of a few people and really integrating them into the development team instead of, forcing the development team to get along with security.
All right. Well, hopefully from your lips to whatever ears you believe in, that will hopefully come to pass. Shani, thanks for being on the show and sharing your knowledge and insights.
Thank you very much.
All right, back to you in the studio.
Do you know what you want?
Can we afford this place?
I'm thinking 1,000-piece Kubernetes, cloud workload protection, and XDR combo.
Yeah, I actually don't see any prices.
Hello, how can I schedule a demo for you today?
So we're on a budget.
Okay.
How much is your 1,000-piece Kubernetes?
What solutions are you currently evaluating?
You don't have to order off that thing.
We don't?
How did you get in here? Check this out.
Uptick secret dollar menu.
Order today and you can secure any combo of cloud and endpoint assets through the end of next year. All for $1.
What if I want to secure 100 Mac laptops and 900 Linux servers?
Yeah, $1. What if I want 500 laptops and 500 Kubernetes nodes? Just $1? Yep, mix and match to create the combo that works for you.
What about customer support?
Yep, everything for just $1. We're gonna order off the Uptick secret dollar menu. And seriously, how did you get in here?
Seriously.
Try the Uptick's combo of CNAP and XDR, delivered in a single UI and data model. Just $1 to secure your cloud, containers, and laptops through the end of next year. Offer ends December 31st.
Hi again, everyone. I hope you all enjoyed today's episode of Techstrong TV. We had some amazing interviews with industry professionals to give you the latest in the tech world. We'll be back again on Thursday, so we hope to see you then. But in the meantime, thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. As always, stay strong. Tech strong.